Welcome everyone to the Wellness Masterclass entitled Defining an Industry, a conversation with Ophelia Yeung and Katherine Johnston, the Global Wellness Institute's Senior Research Fellows. More about Ophelia and Katherine in just a few moments. I'm Nancy Davis, Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute, and I'll be your host for today's call. I want to thank Victor and Lynn Brick, co-founders of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, our generous sponsor for this Wellness Masterclass. This is the first year we are having these calls sponsored, and as long as we have generous supporters like Victor and Lynn, you will all continue to enjoy these events without cost. So much gratitude to the two of you. And I'll be asking them to comment a bit later in this call. Before introducing our distinguished research team, I want to introduce Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of both the Global Wellness Summit and Global Wellness Institute. Susie is the engine that has driven our research since the beginning. A strong advocate for numbers, for qualifying and quantifying the wellness industry, Susie has passionately supported evidence-based research and information, and her passion has transformed the industry. Susie?
Thank you, Nancy. And I am so grateful to Katherine and Ophelia, and thank you for doing this masterclass. And I will just mention that we met, I think it was 15 years ago. We did our first summit, global, at that time called the Global Spa Summit in New York. And after the first meeting, we realized, oh my gosh, our industry does not have any figures. We don't have any figures. And I did some research to find a company that could perhaps help us with that. And that's when I found SRI, which started as Stanford Research Institute. And in particular, I found a study online on golf. And Katherine and Ophelia had done that study. And I thought, that is what we need for the spa industry. And so, long story, but I got in touch with SRI. I hired SRI so we could get Katherine and Ophelia to help us to do the study, and we engaged them. And I would say the rest is history. I have to say that everyone on this call should recognize that if it wasn't for the research that Katherine and Ophelia have done, and I'm very grateful and thankful to the rest of the industry that we've been able to retain Katherine and Ophelia, no longer through SRI, but personally or directly now with the Global Wellness Institute. And the research figures that they have diligently amassed for us is why the media and the people all over the world give so much credibility to wellness. So I'm just very grateful, and I'll turn it over to you, Nancy, and to Katherine and Ophelia. But I just want to say that this is really important, and Katherine and Ophelia are really important to our industry and our growth.
Susie, thank you so much. And thank you for touching on some of those things that we will be talking about. But for sure, this is going to be a really fascinating conversation with these wonderful people. I just want to mention that other members of our team who are on this call, Michelle Gamble, Beatrice, whom you met, who's going to keep you muted, often Paulina, Betsy, Cassandra Kavanaugh, likely others. We have a fantastic team, and they really do support everything we do. A very quick refresher on Zoom, since we're all experts by now. You can choose to watch this in gallery or speaker view and make that choice at the top right. Beatrice will keep you muted throughout. Use the chat function as you already are. Let us know where you're calling in from, company affiliation if you want to, and you can post a question there for Katherine and Ophelia, and we will try to get to some of those. So thank you very much for your cooperation. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my colleagues and friends, Ophelia Yeung and Katherine Johnston, Senior Research Fellows at the Global Wellness Institute. As Susie mentioned, many of you know Ophelia and Katherine from their extraordinary work. Each year for the past many years, they have produced an in-depth proprietary research report that has helped define, codify, qualify, and quantify an industry. Definitions, it turns out, are very important to their work. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about that. Ophelia and Katherine are uniquely qualified for the work they do. Suffice it to say, they have impressive educational backgrounds, extensive experience, as Susie mentioned, at SRI International before coming to the Institute, and a deep commitment to their craft. They speak all over the world, and their work is featured in top global publications. GWI Research, I'm proud to say, has become the leading resource for wellness sector data and insights among media, industry, and very importantly, governments. It is quoted widely in business, trade, and consumer media, and recently been featured in, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Guardian, and much more. It goes on and on. Their work is really the gold standard in the industry. And when we send out the follow-up email for this call, we will include a link to the myriad reports, which you may download without cost. I will not take time now to enumerate all of them, but among them is the global wellness tourism economy, the future of wellness at work, build well to live well, the global wellness economy monitor, which has all those numbers and bubbles, move to be well, the global economy of physical activity, and most recently, defining the mental wellness economy. In addition, during the never-ending year that was 2020, they collaborated with the Vatican to produce a series of white papers entitled Resetting the World with Wellness. When thinking about how best to introduce these two incredible women, I thought about something they said to me when we had a long chat in preparation for this call. They said it was important to remember that they are not in the wellness business. They are in the research business. The point being, they can apply their skills to any worthy topic, remain objective, push hard often against established thinking, and produce a piece of groundbreaking work. This started me thinking about research being just a bit about art in addition to science, especially in the hands of talented people. I know art is subjective and research is not, but I'm going to venture that talent and vision contribute to the great works of science and research. I thought about artists and how they present the world to us in ways we hadn't imagined. They use tools they've mastered to show us a new way to see what has always been there: a landscape, a cathedral, a flower, a human figure. But in the hands of talented people, the world takes shape in new and often surprising ways. This is truly the case with Ophelia and Katherine and the way they have brought to life the world of wellness, the wellness economy, and all the various sectors. They've made us think about the industry in new and surprising ways. And in so doing, they have had enormous impact on business globally. Their work more than stands the test of time. It is indelibly etched into the modern zeitgeist. I would also like to acknowledge Ophelia and Katherine's colleague, Tonya Callender, who may or may not be on this call. She contributes mightily to the work, and we're thrilled she's part of the team. Now, this may be the first and last time you see Ophelia and Katherine without a PowerPoint presentation. We wanted instead to pull back the curtain and give them an opportunity to share their process, their dedication to the wellness world, and also what's to come in terms of research at the Institute. Rest assured, whatever it is, it will represent rigorous work, a strong scientific core, a dedication to collaboration, and it will most certainly impact your business. It will also be, I think, a work of art. Ophelia and Katherine, please unmute. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, thank you for an introduction, Nancy. I need to copy it down and put it on my bio.
I'm happy to send it along. First of all, Phyllis, how are you? How has this year been for you? What's been the impact on your work, your lives, you have families? Tell us a little bit about yourselves this year.
Want to start, Katherine?
Sure. Whoever wants to go first.
Oh,
Katherine?
well, I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is for us is we have two college age kids, and they're seniors and they're twins, and so they've both been home. So this is we got a sort of unexpected time with my children and two adult children at home. So so it's it's a new experience for us. So I think it really the last year. And it really taught me the sort of meaning of gratitude, because you can always miss and lament the things that we can't do, the places we can't go. But I thought about the opportunities of the work that we have done and the events that I could participate. Because we don't have to travel, it is really a time of tremendous, productive work, and also, a lot of sort of personal, satisfaction and growth. So it's all been good.
And how have your kids felt about being home?
They like it. We actually get along. And
That's
I do work out with my son, and then the children like to, have different shows they watch with me. So I have been introduced to a lot of anime. I watch a lot of anime.
Okay, that's wonderful. Katherine, fill us in. How's life?
Oh, it's been an interesting year. I mean, work-wise, in terms of the work we do and the Institute and the research, I mean, it's just, I think, an incredible shift, and very exciting to see how much more prominence, the concept of wellness and everything that we've been working on for the last decade plus, how that's really come to the forefront, and how it actually changes, even how we think about the research we're doing and what's most important now, and, what audiences are going to be looking for, who's going to be interested in reading this. And it's really, I think it's become more expansive. And that's been great. I mean, an example being that, last year we did our usual annual research project for GWI. We were working on the mental wellness study. And then in the midst of that, we had the opportunity with the stuff that was going on at the Vatican to put together a series of white papers on wellness in the context of COVID and what that means for a post-COVID world, which we love doing. I mean, it's just such a big, fun, interesting topic to take on, and let us look back at everything we've done previously and bring it up to make it more current and think about how does this shift now in the new environment. So I think it was an exciting year in that context. Personally, my situation's a little different from Ophelia because I have younger kids. So I have a 2nd grader and a 6th grader. They are in cyber school. They're in the other room doing school right now. Always trying to stay quiet. So it's been a real shift in terms of just work-life balance. And my husband's also working at home. So we're all here working, school, the whole thing. And it's a juggling act, but somehow we get it all done. So
You do. And that's, you've become a teacher in addition to a researcher and everything else, right?
Yeah, I'm actually teaching 2nd grade pretty much on top of my job. So or my husband and I do it together because 2nd graders can't cyber school by themselves. So,
yeah. Unbelievable. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the work with the Vatican, what that sort of meant to you, how that influenced other things, and then also to work on a project about mental wellness, particularly last year, in a year where that was something people were talking about and focused on tremendously. I wonder if you could just talk about both of those projects a little bit more, process-wise maybe, or what, how it felt to work on them.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just start off with the Vatican Project, and that was a tremendous opportunity that, through various connections, and then that Nancy and Susie proposed to us. And it was very ambitious because the collaborating research organizations were pretty much asked to write a series of 8 papers, pretty much 1 a week, on topics. And then we were assigned to the wellness and health categories. So it is really for us to decide how we're going to use this opportunity, and what topics and what we can do. And the format is basically, sort of what is the issue, what is the question, and what is the data or research, and what would be some action. And these are meant to be very short pieces, like 4 to 5 pages. So to researchers, it is really a challenge because it is often easy to write something very, very long, just with a lot of research and backup and data. But often people, like you lose the point, or what is the point? So this is sort of in between a research and a consulting and advisory, and a thought leadership project, because with the Vatican, you really, they have an apparatus that they can do work and also promote important messages. So when we're looking at the topic of wellness, then we thought about the different research we've done, of course, there is the wellness economy bubble, but the industries themselves do not necessarily represent, maybe an area that's important. So we came up with the 8 topics, and for each one, we try to just outline what the situation is because of COVID-19, and identify the different, sort of have some kind of a data backup analysis. And then we propose, the actions we propose are very short, and usually we divide them into kind of like a more government levels, and then a community level, or employers, and personal level. Sort of lay out, there are different levels of agency and action. And so it is meant for a big wide audience. So it was very interesting because, for example, in the topic of work, we have done workplace wellness, and people know the figures is one of the bubbles. And we're looking at, what are the companies and the activities that employers are interested in to promote workplace wellness. But for the paper, we are actually looking at, the topic was work, health, and dignity, because COVID revealed to us it is not about just some sort of workplace wellness programs, or just maybe even giving your employees, the tools to do work at home, but more about sort of a broader treatment and how the society view workers. So it kind of just give us push us to look at a higher plane, not just from an industry or a business or economic perspective. So in that sense, it's just challenging, but it's also very gratifying because it allows us to, look at the foundation of our work, but try to push out new visions and recommendation for action.
Fantastic. Yeah, they were so well received, and it should be known that, the Vatican obviously could have chosen, any research organization in the world to work on this, and they chose ours because of the work that we done in the industry, and they knew that we came very highly recommended by a scholar who had spoken in Singapore, Martin Palmer, who said does work with the Vatican, said if you're going to study health and wellness, these need to be the people who do it. So, and boy, did we deliver. They were incredibly well received. Katherine, do you want to add anything to what Ophelia said?
Yeah, I think she covered it pretty well. I mean, the interesting thing with that process is, these were short white papers. They were 5 pages, and something we often joke about just amongst ourselves is it's really easy to write 200 pages on a topic, but it's really hard to write 5. People who don't write and do research don't always realize that, but it imposes a lot of discipline, and it really makes you distill the topic into really the core of what you're trying to say. And it's useful for us. And it's actually something that we've really been trying to hone the skill for ourselves in the last 10 to 15 years we've been doing this work is, what are the messages that we really need to convey on this topic or in whatever report or research we're writing? What does the audience need to hear? And how do we say that in the most sort of impactful and distilled and short way possible so that we're not boring you with 50 pages on the same topic? That said, our reports still end up pretty long, but we do try, really aim for that, to not say too much, but to say the right things. And that was one of the interesting challenges of the Vatican Project, was to be forced every week to do that on a topic, produce 5 pages that really hit the core of what needed to be said without saying too much. And it's helpful because that it also positioned us to sort of think about, again, these industries and these topics we've been working on in a different way, and how we might shift, our approach to them in the coming years, post-COVID, how we talk about them in GWI research.
So wonderful segue. Thank you. Thinking about post-COVID, now we can talk a little bit about the mental wellness report, which I think is important to talk about because you were doing that last year as well, and that's really been a very, very important one about definitions. One of the things that people I've always asked about, like, is mental health, mental wellness? What's the difference between them? And you two have always made definitions a very central part of the research, a very important, now you could at this point publish your own dictionary. Maybe talk first about definitions and their importance, and then a little bit about how that applied to the mental wellness report this year.
Sure, I can start.
So,
So the definition topic is interesting because that actually takes us back to the very first report that was done at GWS, which is that spa economy study that I think Susie mentioned earlier. So when we came in to do that study for the industry, that was 2007, 2008, and there had never been a worldwide study done on the spa industry. There were some country level numbers. And the challenge, I mean, we were coming in fresh. We were not part of the spa industry, not part of wellness. You know, we're economic researchers. And what Susie made us aware of to start is that no one can agree what a spa is. And this was a big area of contention in the industry worldwide. You know, and there's a lot of historical and cultural context to that. I mean, the Europeans look at spa one way. In the United States, it has evolved differently, which is fine. That's normal. So our big hurdle on that report, and probably what took us half the time, was just to come up with the definition of a spa. Because in order to measure the industry and decide what you include and don't include, you first have to be able to define it and put parameters around what you're measuring. So that was our first attack at definitions in this sector. And the interesting thing is, I mean, that's become one of the primary things we've done every single project since then. So, you know, we followed on the spa work a few years later with the first study where we looked at wellness, which was in 2010. And again, that was the first global study that had been done on the topic. I mean, when we did it then, it was still kind of in the context of the spa industry, but it involved a lot of definitions. You know, what is wellness? What does this mean to spas or to others who may be swirling around in this sector? So every year, you know, we've taken on a new industry in that that framework we've come up with, the 10 bubbles, and our first thing that we have to do is define the sector. So last year it was mental wellness. That was an especially challenging one because again, it's one of those things that people talk about, and more and more so in recent years, no one really knows what it is they're talking about. Everyone kind of has their own concept of what it means. And so we really wanted to one of our primary aims in that report was to build some understanding about it. And especially to think about, you know, a lot of people would say to us, well, mental wellness is different than mental health, but nobody could really explain how and why and what's different. And so that was what we saw our job to be last year. We were really excited when we started doing the background research for that study to find that there was a lot of very solid and very interesting academic literature from the psychology field on that topic already that probably no one out of a certain narrow area of psychology has read. So it's not widely known. So we dug back into a lot of that, and it really helped us with the definitional part and to establish that framework that we put in the report about how mental wellness is different from mental health and why, how they work together. And so that really became one of the core focuses of that study last year.
You know, you've left us on the edge of our seats in terms of how you solved the problem of defining a spa at the very beginning. Can you just tell us that, and then we'll go to Ophelia?
We erred on the side of being very inclusive because that's actually something that we've seen as being very important in this work, that, you know, we're not here to create a very rigid and hard definition of, well, this is wellness, if you're not this, you can't be in it. You know, that's not the point. That's also not productive when you're thinking about an industry that really has been driven by consumer demand and consumer interest. You know, it's all really, at the end of the day, it's about what consumers are looking for. And if I, as a consumer, am walking into a place to get a massage and I feel that, you know, this is my spa experience, you know, that's legitimate. You know, so we didn't want to say, well, you have to have a water treatment and you have to check these boxes. And so, you know, I'm trying to remember the exact definition we put on it. I think we said something like, you know, spa is a place that, I don't remember. Ophelia, do you?
Mind, body, spirit.
Something about renewal of mind, body, and spirit. Yeah, and then we gave some examples of the types of treatments or experiences you would usually have in a spa. You know, a facial, body treatments, massage, but we didn't say you have to have 4 of these or you're not.
Right.
You know, because again, it's cultural, it's historical. Different regions have different types of offerings in what they think of as a spa, and we, as, you know, I say American researchers, are not there to say, well, you know, you don't fit our definition. So
Right.
Inclusiveness, I think, at the end of the day is what's key.
Susie, did you want to add something to that?
I did, if you don't mind, because it was miraculous happening when there was so much dissension in the entire industry because, you know, people define spas differently. And just like Katherine said, the overall umbrella definition was so inclusive. That was fantastic. But then what you did, Katherine and Ophelia, which was brilliant, is that you then put underneath that umbrella definition different categories. There were day spas, there were resort spas, medical spas, Ayurvedic spas, all of those, so that people can then also see themselves in these different categories. And in 1 year, that entire conversation about the, you know, the dissension about, you know, you're not a spa, I'm a spa, it resolved the problem. It was really brilliant. I just look back to that as such an important moment, that you gave us an umbrella definition that was so overall, and then you allowed the different categories so people could feel comfortable in still being what they felt they wanted to call themselves. Maybe Ophelia, you can talk about that a little bit, but it was really, for those of us maybe on the call who were there, it was an amazing thing that transpired in 1 year.
It was also allowed for the numbers to be what the, you know, ultimately what the numbers are. Ophelia, maybe you could talk a little bit about how that, you know, you apply that framework in a sense, and how you did to mental wellness. And I'm going to ask Victor and Lynn to chime in a minute.
So I want to maybe talk about applying the definition to another example first. I think wellness tourism is another big shift. When we put out the numbers and the definition in India in 2013,
12,
I think.
13, 12.
2013, the summit. And so like Katherine said, we're economists. We don't have a definition, then we cannot count the economic activities that add up to a number. So it is really important for us to have a clear definition. We are not allowed to be too ambiguous. But how to define something also set the direction of the conversation going forward, just like what Susie said about the spa industry. And in wellness tourism, I remember when we put out the definition there, primary and secondary wellness travel, there was so much resistance from the destination spa world because they feel that only people who go to a destination spa or for the purpose of that will classify or qualify as a wellness tourist or classify as, you know, wellness travel. We use a much more broader definition. We said there are two kinds. The one kind is the people who use wellness as their intention and the decision for choosing a location and their trip. But the other kind of wellness travelers are the ones who have wellness on their minds and want to bring some of these you know, lifestyle habits or activities in their trip. So there, and because of that, our number was so much bigger than say medical tourism. So there was all kinds of resistance, but we really want to put it out that there are people who are starting to care about their workout, their food, their sleep. Even back then, I mean, now of course everybody talks about it, but 8 years ago, that was not the mainstream thinking in the among people who consider themselves in the wellness tourism industry. You know, they don't think of the general Marriott hotels or the big hotels as part of this. Because and by our definition, all kinds of people traveling for business or for other reasons are also wellness travelers. They may not be spending as much or do as much wellness activities, but they're bringing that attention. And since then, we know now, even airports, airlines, and, you know, all kinds of industries are coming in to help people maintain a healthy lifestyle while they travel. So how we define it and measure it really help to push that conversation and the industry and everyone to the other, a new direction or direction maybe some are already going. So I feel those, you know, so that's why we spend so much time on it and sometimes kind of, you know, put out things that might be a little controversial. But you know, that we do it after talking to a lot of people. So that is, so I think that is sort of like a parallel to the spa industry. And so, you know, how do we apply to the mental wellness industry? As Katherine said, there are so many misunderstanding or lack of definition of these terms, from mental health, mental wellness, mental hygiene, to just sort of plainly happiness and mental well-being. And people use them sometimes synonymously. But and then sometimes you go into the medical literature, WHO or different organizations, they will describe mental wellness as the same as how they would describe mental health. And they will put in some stuff about emotion, something about happiness, and they will write hundreds and hundreds of words, which after you read it, man, you may get a sense of what it means, but it is too complicated for us to actually explain what it is. So our job was to come up with a definition in not too many words, in 2 sentences. So for example, mental wellness, we boil it down to, it is an internal resource. So it is not a state, it's a resource. And so that is in itself a thing, it's a resource, so you can replenish, it could be depleted. And then we use 4 words, it's think, feel, connect, and function. Because sometimes people, maybe focus too much on the emotion part and they don't focus on the cognitive part, which is what a lot of people care about, right? Both maybe the risk of cognitive decline and also people who want to keep themselves, the mind, the sharpest. For students for the exams, gamers for the gaming, or executives for their business. So there are many aspects to it. And then there is the aspect of resilience, but there is also the aspect of growth. And flourishing is not just about coping. It's about, it's like a process of growing and changing. So we have that definition in, I think, fewer than 30 words, maybe 28 words. And it incorporates all those concepts because those are concepts where frankly, the industry, different products, solutions and services are targeting. Some of them are resilient, some of them emotional, some of them cognitive. So it takes a lot of time to boil it down. And as Katherine said, reading hundreds and hundreds of studies, psychology, business, technology, literature, to try to boil it down so that it is a useful definition that people can, use in their business or in their practice.
Yeah, and it was quite a groundbreaking report. I'm gonna tell you, you guys can take a sip of water, and I'm gonna ask Victor and or Lynn, who are co-founders of the John W. Brick Foundation, to maybe comment just for a minute on this report and the importance. You run a mental health foundation. How important is that report to the work that you do?
Hi, first we'd like to thank everybody for their well wishes, and Nancy and Susie, thank you for having us on, and of course, Ophelia and Katherine. How important is the report? The report is critical because, as everyone here knows, there is so much confusion about the way, what is mental health? I mean, just think of some of the questions on the chat. What is mental health? What's the definition of mental illness? Is it mental wellness? What is it? And the report helps to give some flavor, more color, and more structure to exactly what meant to the field of mental wellness, and starts to change the narrative. And the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation's vision is to change the way the world treats mental health. And we really change that to mental wellness. And how do we do that? We fund evidence-based research, we create programs and promote programs and services, and we serve as a collaborative hub as to how holistic approaches such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices benefit mental wellness. Now, if you think about it, and I'm sitting here thinking this, and it just kind of hit me, Sigmund Freud shaped the way the world treated mental health for 100 years. We, the wellness community, have the ability, partly due to COVID, because it's a great accelerator, to shape the way the world will treat mental wellness for the next 100 years. I don't believe there was one single bit of holistic approach in anything Freud promoted. And that is what frustrated me in the treatment of my brother John, and ultimately led to his death. I'm convinced of it. We, everyone on this Zoom, everyone in the wellness industry, everyone in the fitness industry, everyone in the health industry has the ability to change, change that narrative and change the way the world treats mental health for the next 100 years. And this report is the beginning of that change.
And we're so grateful because we've been able to share this report Katherine and Ophelia, with our industry as well. We've given a couple keynotes recently, and it's been our fuel for our presentations.
Victor and Lynn, thank you so much for everything that you do in your foundation, in your work, in your support of everything that we do. It means the world to us all. And I do think it's important, it's a really important point that cannot be overstated, that these reports really drive more than the industry. I mean, they drive business, they drive associated businesses. They have tremendous people need to be able to refer to numbers and evidence and in order to make their own case about something. And so this has been incredible. And I just think that doing a report on mental wellness in the year of COVID has, had to have had a lot of, sort of extra emotional content to it in the doing of it. Was it a particularly difficult report to write in any way because of what was happening in the world, Katherine and Ophelia?
Interestingly, in some ways that report was a little easier for us to write than some previous ones. I mean, not because of what was happening in the world or our, personal situation, but just we were almost, because of everything that was happening last year, we were forced to do it in a much shorter time frame than we normally would for these reports. I mean, we always aim to have a year for each topic. That usually doesn't happen, but because of the Vatican work, we had started the research earlier in 2020 and then dropped it for the Vatican work and then came back to finish the mental wellness report. And most of it happened between the 1st of July and the summit, which is, you can imagine what a short time period that was. So it was challenging in the sense that we did it in a very compressed timeline, but it also imposed some discipline and focus. And we really had to be very clear and focused on what we had what we wanted to get out of it and we wanted to give people. So that streamlined the process a bit in some ways. But yes, the topic felt very timely. There's just so much in it. I mean, I don't know that we even have processed ourselves, what all of it means in terms, even personally or for our work going forward. I mean, I think the interesting thing that Ophelia and I have found, outside of the mental wellness study is, in some years we work on a topic and we do find ourselves sort of shifting how we think about things in our lives. We did the workplace wellness study, and I think both of us changed some of the ways that we worked that year in response to what we were doing. So, it's always a process that we learn from and we grow both personally and then also in the work sense. So.
We want to know about your process. And of course, we want to know a lot of things. I'm going to want to know about what you're working on now and what we can expect to be released at the summit in Tel Aviv. But maybe just talk a little bit about your process. How do you go from an idea, where does that idea maybe come from, to the full report? What's your process? I know curiosity, you've mentioned to me before, drives a lot of this for you, but maybe could you, pull back the curtain a little bit on one of those reports and tell us how that's done?
Yeah, well, I can jump in. I mean, I think one thing that people might be interested to know about our process that's behind what we do is we work very iteratively, and Ophelia and I have been working together for a really long time. We started working together in 1998 when I was an intern at SRI. And so we've, it's been more than 20, how many years is that? 20 years now. And so, we work together probably in a different way than other colleagues might who just have not spent that much time working together. And we're pretty symbiotic in how we work. So, I guess our previous boss at SRI would say there's always a flailing period in any topic that you take on. And that's the nature of consulting that we were doing previously and also in this work, because usually when we start a topic, it's new to us, or it's adjacent to some other wellness research we've done, but it's still new. So mental wellness, that was a new topic for us. And so we do have to spend a lot of time just reading. And we try to track even just things in all types of media and news and journals as much as we can, although we're dealing with 11 wellness sectors now, so we can't follow everything in depth every year. But we just start by gathering information. We read everything we can. We do Google searches. We look for organizations that we know are leaders in something related to that topic, and we look at their reports. We go into academic journals. I mean, we read everything we can. That's usually the starting point. We combine that with talking to people, which is very important, again, because all of these wellness sectors are so new and evolving that sometimes we get our best insights from people in the industry and in businesses who have been working on it their whole career. And so we do a lot of phone interviews with people around the world that just gives a different perspective, a different kind of information than we would get from reading stuff. So those inputs come together, and there's a lot of brainstorming. Both Tonya, Ophelia, and I will do regular calls where we brainstorm and just talk about what we're reading and percolate ideas. Interestingly, the mental wellness definition that Ophelia talked about, that probably went through 30 versions. Ophelia had a file that she was, parsing words. And I think the way that evolved was actually on a Skype chat between me and Ophelia. We were talking about, something that a few people had said to us on mental wellness is, it's not just mental, it's psychological, it's cognitive, it's behavioral, there's spiritual side. There are many words that come to this, and we were just playing around with words and how do we talk about all of these things together without it sounding really complicated. And we just kind of switched words out until we came to the simplified version, which was think, feel, connect, and function. So it's that iterative process and a lot of brainstorming. The numbers are a separate conversation. We can talk about that later, but
there's collaboration at the core of this.
Yeah.
When you talk to other people in the industry and beyond the industry, you obviously work with each other all the time. Ophelia, anything else you want to add to process? How about curiosity about something? You both talked to me about that.
So like Katherine said, we read a lot of things and talk to a lot of people. But the important thing is we read a lot of things that are, if people in the sector may think it's peripheral. So like, for example, if you look at the workplace wellness report we did, we were not looking at workplace wellness literature only, because if you look at those, there will be lots of studies on, the ROI low, no, high, low, whatever, and all the details on the programs. But we find ourselves really going into the happiness literature, what defines, well-being at the workplace, and management literature. So and then psychology, the psychology of happiness. So our understanding of mental wellness actually started, our research on mental wellness started many years ago when we were doing workplace wellness research. Because if we just look at the workplace wellness program and talking to the business and the people, it will be quite limited. So for every one of this, we have to go into the sort of bigger ideas adjacent. And for example, wellness real estate, at the time, I think most people, if they think of this term at all, they're thinking of more hospitality type or timeshare, or maybe just a retirement community type development. But when we start looking at the history of different thinking about housing movement, we just dug back to the Garden City. We actually went over to visit the original Garden City in England. And like literature books, and we were reading books on urban planning, and a lot of things on architecture, all kinds of architecture, and then the food movement, religious movement. So, sometimes we go down a rabbit hole because, the topics could be so broad and could be so multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. So that is one of the things that you cannot be limiting yourself to that topic. There are so many things, but then the challenge is how to rein it in, because it's easy to be a researcher and read a thousand things and then not know how to put it back. So in the end, the written word is what requires discipline. Like Katherine said, parsing the words and the meaning of each word, because I think we feel it's our responsibility to not waste the reader's time. If people read a sentence we write, they should be getting something out of each sentence. We should not have any redundant, convoluted ideas that confuse people. And if it's something we don't know and we think, they're still developing, we will say that. But so it's to provide clarity and something very specific. So it is a process of eventually just sort of winnow it down to ideas and what we want to put out there that we think is useful to people. and put it in the most clear and concise way. So it's hard to describe, but like Katherine said, because we've worked symbiotically for more than 20 years. And sometimes, when I look at the report, I really seriously cannot tell if the sentence was written by me or Katherine. The mental wellness report, it has gone through probably 5 editing. Even at that short time that we wrote it, one of us would have written the first, and then it would be edited, re-edited, and as each sentence is edited probably 5 times. So our reports are probably getting slightly shorter and more concise every time. Maybe not in length, but we try to cram more in so that when you read it, you're getting more out of it.
So I think I speak for everybody on this call and well beyond that. The value of reading those reports cannot be measured, and it's you achieve great success in the words that you choose and the way that you put them together. Can you share what you're working on now? How you feel? I know it has to do with the impact of COVID on the economy. What you'll be sharing with us in Tel Aviv at the summit. Whatever you can share about that now, be really interesting for people.
Sure. Well, I'll jump in. Well, everyone will be happy to hear that we're working on new numbers because at the end of the day, all of these reports are really important, but we know everyone, looks for and uses the industry numbers that GWI puts out. They're very important in many ways. And the last wellness economy monitor we did had data in it for 2018, right? 2017? I can't remember. It's been a couple of years. Of course, the world's changed, and especially with last year and with COVID. And the big question now is what's happened to this industry? And so we'll be putting out a new wellness economy monitor with that famous bubble chart with new numbers in it. And the numbers will be for 2020. So for the COVID year. And that's because, when you do economic data, you have to cover a full calendar year. And so we're always looking backward at the previous year. So in 2021, we will put out a report with data for last year. It's always a challenging undertaking when we do that project because we had 10, now we have 11 sectors in that framework. We have to measure all of them, and they all have very different methodology that goes into producing those numbers, which of course is made even more challenging with COVID. And so what we're working on is trying to understand, of course, what the impact of COVID and everything that happened last year has been on each of those sectors. And it's very different across different industries. Some will shrink a lot, as we all know, some will grow. And so right now we're working on the numbers, and simultaneously we've been doing a lot of iteration and brainstorming and research, trying to think about, because we don't want it just to be a backward looking report and say, oh, bad year, did wellness shrink? Maybe, but really think of it as an opportunity for repositioning and looking forward and the growing prominence of wellness in a post-COVID world. And so we will be framing some sort of key messages or key ideas in each of the wellness sectors of where we think people in the business or in policy or who are interested in that sector, what you should be thinking about or what you should be looking for moving forward in that sector to as an opportunity or to drive new thinking and sort of change how we are approaching wellness in general and wellness in each of these sectors. And so the report's going to be a combination of updated numbers with really let's reposition and rethink about this industry and what it means for the future.
Can you give us an example of one of those? One of the sort of thinking about the future that you just mentioned, one of the sectors. Is there anything you can tell us? I know it's early in the game to have anything specific, but is there any sneak peek we could get at any of that that you're seeing at this point?
Ophelia, you want to throw one out there? She's been keeping the brainstorming list for that.
Well, in parallel, we were looking at different industries and what might be the important things people should think about, but also we feel we are the keeper of the wellness economy. So we also want to look at what are the themes in the wellness economy, and definitely, the big themes are right now. We know people really have woken up to prevention. It's the whole world. So this is like a whole, it's universal everywhere, every country, at any income level. People think about their health and how to stay healthy. So that has a tremendous impact on the wellness economy. And at the same time, I think people are also waking up to the inequity of their access to anything related to wellness. So we've been talking about wellness for all for a while, but with COVID, it's people, we no longer have the luxury to think we can just live in our bubble. I mean, you can live in your, kind of decamp to your country house and just get delivery. But, if the people who do those things are not healthy, we're still, we're not protected. So it really brings home the whole idea that, there's no bubble. We're only as healthy as the most vulnerable among us, right? And so it is also, that's also a theme in the whole wellness economy, and it kind of permeates in all sectors. And another one is sustainability, and this whole idea of sort of being regenerative, really, thinking and caring about planet. And so, that has ramification that runs through pretty much every sector in the whole, in the entire global economy. And I think the wellness industry are pretty much more taken to task to walk the talk as well. So those are gonna be themes, and all of you have read that and know that already, but how that runs through, it's a very interesting thing to observe and then kind of think about in the future.
Yeah,
And actually, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
One other thing I should mention that I think people would be excited to hear is, not along with the new numbers that we'll be putting out, we're going to be doing something new in the monitor, which is, for the first time, we will be rolling together all of the sectors into a wellness economy number for each country. That's not something we've done in the past because of the way we approach the different sectors. Some of them we do original research, some are just high-level global numbers. But we feel like this is a good time to do this, and we are positioned now to put out numbers at the country level for wellness as a wellness industry by country. We get asked about that a lot, and we had not been able to do it in the past. But so the focus on this report may shift a little bit from the sort of those very detailed country charts for every single sector, and the emphasis will move more toward, we're going to give you country level data for wellness, not just for beauty or for wellness tourism or whatever, but here's what wellness is in each country's economy. So that's going to be new and exciting in that report.
Well, we cannot wait to hear about it, and of course that'll be introduced at the summit in Tel Aviv. Has anything surprised you so far in your research this year, would you say?
I think we've really just gotten started on some of the sectors on the numbers. I mean, we hear people saying anecdotally, well, we think, food's been growing, and, we know tech has been growing, and we know tourism has been shrinking. You hear a lot of anecdotal information. So I think it's been interesting to start to put numbers behind that to see if those assumptions ring true. So I was working on the healthy eating bubble last month. I mean, it's grown actually by a surprising amount. And so, that it's a surprise when you pull the data and really put it together, and it actually is valid what people are thinking. So, that's the interesting part of the process, is to put the data behind the the qualitative ideas.
When you finish a report, do you have like postpartum PTSD? Like what happens to you when you've sort of birthed one of these and it's done, and you're working on the PowerPoint, or even that's done, and you're ready to present? Like, how do you feel once you've done one of these?
It's like birthing a baby, but it's usually, there's no depression. Usually just the joy and the relief.
Although it's never really done, like we finish the report and then we immediately produce the presentation for the summit, which is a whole other challenging process. We have the press event in January, which follows a couple months after that, we produce new things for that. So, and then we end up, with press questions, and, it's never done. So yeah. There's always a sigh of relief when the draft of the report goes out, but at that point, usually there's little time for, let's kick back and have a 3-week vacation because there are presentations and there's always next year's report coming, which, we always feel behind starting the next one. So
Want to give us
So
any, go ahead, I'm sorry.
the challenge of creating so many bubbles in the wellness industry and be the keeper of the bubble is that and then we interact with press and the various people in the industry, and there is an expectation that we are up-to-date expert on all the micro trends on every single industry that we have ever produced numbers. And so that is sometimes that's sort of challenging because we're not in the wellness industry. We're not operating in the wellness industry. So we do not, we're not day-to-day interacting with, the customer, if you're a spa or you're running a resort or you're in a beauty company. So so we have to just sort of be very aware that our knowledge builds, but is really on the entire wellness economy. And it's most important that we really see the connections and the big picture, because on an industry level, we're not the experts. The people, in the industry, they're the experts. So we're not gonna provide value by playing catch up with them to try to know what they know on their business level and all the micro strategy level, because that's not what we bring. So we have to be kind of aware and remember, like how we can add value in each one. And each one of this is adding knowledge and perspective to the other ones. And I can tell you that each and every one of this is informed by the previous ones, all the ones we have done. So it's iterative, but over time, like each one, when we're done, we just feel, another sort of area of knowledge is appended and added to the whole wellness economy. And so that is a satisfaction, because it's shared among all stakeholders, right? And so that we feel that everything is connected, right?
Well,
where we live.
We're very glad that you're the keepers of those numbers. We know in your hands, they are, everything is going to be done well and done right. I know it's like asking a parent to choose a favorite child. Do you have a favorite report that you've written over time?
I do, for sure. For me, the Build Well to Live Well report was definitely the most exciting and interesting. And I would say probably we learned the most from that report. And that's the report that's on wellness real estate, wellness communities, and more broadly, just wellness in the physical and built environment. And before doing that report, we had worked on wellness tourism. I think we had done the workplace wellness study at that point. We had been coming at the topic of wellness from a little different angle. We had been kind of throwing around some ideas about, is there a wellness ecosystem? Is there, what is the environment around us? What's the impact of that? And we had never really been able to put our head around it. So the exciting thing that report did for us is it really gave us the opportunity to understand the environmental influences, not just built things and nature, but even social influences and how important that is to wellness. And we were able to integrate that into our thinking about the entire concept and about that flows into all the other bubbles in many ways. We've got
30 seconds left. Ophelia, do you have a favorite report?
Build Well too, but I also really like the future of wellness at work.
Okay. Well, listen, we love them all. We could go on for a lot longer. I didn't get to half of the questions, and some of you have posted questions. I just want everybody to unmute and give Ophelia and Katherine some global love. That was wonderful and so
Thank you very much.
Thanks to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Brilliant. Thank you much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Use your information all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll send the links in the follow-up for sure. Download all the reports.
You guys are fabulous. Thank you.
And thank you, Victor and Lynn, again.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.